Hello everybody, in today's video I'm going to talk you through how I make my coasters. So I start off with 4 of these birch plywood coasters that I paint white using Wilko's white furniture paint. You can use any kind of paint that you would like, acrylic, chalk paint, anything that you have lying around, as long as it is a very light colour, preferably white. The reason for that is because if you're using napkin decoupage, white will always make your colours pop a lot more. It shows your colours true as to how they are before you take off the 2 layers off of your napkin to actually do the decoupage. So white is always the best option to use. This paint also serves as primer because it's quite thick, so it kind of seals in the wood so that it doesn't really, once I apply any kind of glues, varnishes, etc., they don't lift the wood fibers up. I just paint them white and then I give them a very light sand using 400 or 600 grit sandpaper just to make sure that they are nice and smooth. So once my coasters are dry, I apply my napkin. So essentially what I do here is I make a big puddle on a plastic sheet. I get all of the creases and bubbles out of the napkin with a soft acrylic brush, and then once that's done I drain away and dab away any excess waters just so that my napkin doesn't like leak water everywhere when I turn the sheet over, and then I apply my napkin on top. If you would like to know how I do it in more detail, please check out the description. I will leave a link there to an explanation video where I in detail go through exactly how I do my napkin applications, just so that I don't get any kind of creases whatsoever. So once I've applied my napkin, I seal it using my varnish that I'm going to use to finish off the piece. So this is heavy duty wood varnish by the brand Polyvine. Again, there's going to be a link in the description below, and I just apply a nice even layer of it on top and I let it cure overnight. The reason why I use varnish to seal my piece with is because it's a lot easier to get a nice even finish than it is using Mod Podge or PVA glue or any other decoupage glue that you have lying around. It does the exact same job. It still glues your napkin down, but with a much nicer finish. So that's what I would recommend using. Now, so if you can't get your hands on this particular Polyvine varnish, then I would suggest doing a Google search for heat resistant water-based varnish and see what you can get your hands on in the area that you are, or if you're able to order something online. But for coasters or placemats, it needs to be something that is heat resistant. I used to use just normal water-based varnish. Matte tends to be the best to use for that. However, it's still if you just put in cold drink on top of your coasters, it's fine. But if you put hot drinks on top of your coaster, when it's sealed with just normal water-based varnish, they will stick to the coaster. It still protects it, but it's not great. So if you can get your hands on Polyvine, that would be great. When I've finished applying my napkin to all 4 coasters and they are fully dry, I sand off the edges using 120 grit sandpaper, but any kind of sandpaper that you have lying around should do. And now it's time to finish off the edges and paint the back of the coaster. So the paint that I chose to use is this kind of teal, green teal paint that I had left over from a previous project, as always, and I just added a little bit of black into it and mixed it all together just to make it a little bit darker so that it doesn't stand out so much with these grey coasters. Now what I have here is a sponge dabber, and again you can buy them online. I buy these on eBay or Amazon or any kind of crafty place. Any craft shops usually do them, and they come in packs of, I don't know, 5, 10, 3. There's loads of options out there. And I just dab my sponge dabber into the paint. I dab off the excess just so that it doesn't splatter around everywhere. Dab off the excess on my plate, and then I lightly go over all of the edges just in this kind of little dabbing motion, and then I set my coaster to dry. I usually get my little pots that I have here lying around with like little paint or whatever, and then I sit it on top just so that the edges don't touch any kind of flat surface, so that all of the edges have the time to dry without paint sticking to my table or, you know, anything else. And so again, I do that to all 4 of my coasters, and then I apply the same paint with the same sponge dabber to the actual back of the coaster once the paint is dry. Now, I did not have to wait for this very long. Paint that you usually apply on the edges tends to dry very quickly, so by the time I was done with all 4 of my coasters with the edges on them, I was ready to do the back of the coasters. Now, on the back of the coasters, because I usually tend to apply more paint to the back, just so that it's a bit of a thicker layer, that tends to dry a little bit longer, so you might have to also apply 1 or 2 layers, maybe 3, depending on the quality of your paint and the effect that you would like to achieve, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You could also use a normal kitchen sponge if you don't have access to a sponge dabber. Just kind of fold it in half and using just the spongy bit do that, but because I do this a lot, it made sense for me to invest into an actual tool that can be used and reused again and again. Right, so now the last thing that is left for me to do is to varnish my coasters. Again, I'm using the same varnish that we talked about earlier, Polyvan Heavy Duty Wood Varnish, which is water and heat resistant, and it is also food safe and child safe. So if you can get your hands on it, it's great. If not, search for something that is heat resistant. I am not paid by Polyvan in any shape or form. I'm just saying, I like this stuff. But yeah, so that is what I do. I apply 3 layers of varnish to the top and 3 layers to the bottom while letting them dry in between. I'm also sealing the edges as I go. And that is it. That's the coasters that I made, and that's how I make all of my coasters now. So feel free to make whatever designs that you would like. You can use crackle varnish, you can use normal paper instead of napkins. Do whatever you would like. But yeah, if you have any questions, please do let me know, and there will be links for everything in the description. Subscribe, like this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!